Oh, and we're going
Yes.
live. We're going live. I think so. We always give a couple of seconds, don't we, for me to make sure that we're live before we say hello. So it's still buffering at the moment, everyone. We are live. So, everyone, thank you so much for joining me on this lovely, beautiful Saturday here in Jersey. The sun is coming out. It's becoming nice and sunny, so hopefully we're set for a nice rest of the Saturday. Thank you so much for joining me, Rick, Alejandro, and Monjote. And what we decided to discuss today, which is quite controversial, and I hope you will join in the discussion, is actually let's talk about discrimination. There's a lot of things happening in the world at the moment, Black Lives Matter movement, particularly in the United States. It's also happening in the UK on a lower scale, but it is happening. So we thought it would be a good subject to pick up and discuss. So I'm actually going to go to Monjote first and foremost. Hey, Monjote.
Hi, Anna. Thank you so much. This is such an interesting yet, I guess, little bit of a controversial topic. And, more than me talking about it, I'm here to listen to you guys, different viewpoints, and probably also, address the questions that people throw at us, if at all. So I think discrimination, I want to paint an overall picture. So discrimination, I think, is based on dividing sections of people based on a first level interpretation. It's just based on one projection of how people appear, right? If it's caste based, like color or something like that. So it's not a complete picture. It's mostly stems from first level interpretation or the biases or preconceived notions or accumulative conditioning of the culture. So we are basically entangled in so many layers of interpretation, which is not complete, and that leads to this, dividing based on this or that. This is white, this is black, male or female. So I think what we have to do is what are we getting out of this? What's the end goal? Do we want to settle for this temporary satisfaction of being superior, based on this perceived differences, which is very first level, or we want to step back and work on a greater sense of harmony, because we are all human beings and we are one way or another, we are all cut from the same cloth. So do we want to work towards greater harmony based on who we are at a very fundamental level, or we want to get to a very low level and just observe the perceived reality and the entanglement of what's going on in the world and things like that. So it's basically stripping off the layers that's going on around you and then stepping back and saying that what do I really want? Do I want love, peace, harmony, and greater sense of overall holistic benefit for humankind, or do I want to be superior on a momentary basis based on caste or creed or color or things like that? So I think that is required primarily because even though that feels like I am doing something which is maybe it seems unfair on the face of it, but if you step back and really look at the overall picture, it's actually something that is going to serve me really well in the long run, because that leads to peace and harmony.
So
That's one interpretation.
So it could be unfair, but it's going to serve you in one way or another. But is that then ecological? For you to say that it could be unfair, but it could benefit you in some way. So what do you mean by that? Because that's quite a controversial thing to say.
I mean, unfair, because you do discrimination, you engage in discrimination because you want things to be fair or you want things to go well for you. But that could only be for the moment. But once you step back and you actually say, you know what, let's harmonize the whole thing. Let's also let's also be fair to the other party. Let's just work out something which is like based on a common ground, fundamentals of human nature. Then that might seem like, oh no, I'm letting go of what's mine. I'm letting go of my share. Yeah. But when you step back and when you look at the overall picture, actually it will serve you because it works towards a greater good. Greater sense of harmony. And I'm painting an overall picture. I don't want to get to the specifics. I think you guys have specifics to talk about. Let's bring that on. Yeah.
Monjoti, one thing I want to say
Yeah.
when we start talking about discrimination,
Yeah.
let me just share with you a definition. I mean that I saw. Discrimination is the treatment or the consideration of people based on class or a
Yeah.
category, and
That's
we
right.
can
Yeah.
discriminate based on race or gender or rather individual merit of a person.
Yeah.
But it's just and I'm going to piggyback on what you said about
Yeah.
unfair is the
Yeah.
unfair treatment of a person
Yeah.
based on prejudice. But the question is this: when we talk about discrimination,
Yeah.
where is the primary root of discrimination? And I truly
Oh,
believe that
yeah.
discrimination, in my opinion, uh, begins at home. It begins as you begin to grow up and develop. It depends in what environment you are being brought up, because there are homes that are very, very discriminatory. And just
Yeah.
because of parents or other family members, it says, okay, you want to go and play. Well, don't play with such and such, and stay away from such and such. And so they begin discriminating at that very primary level. And so when you grow up like that, then you develop into an adult that doesn't have a fair picture of the world, but it has a very discriminatory picture of the world. And
Yeah.
so, blacks on one side, Asians on the other side, religious people on the other side. If they're not from my religion, I don't want to listen. And
That's right.
that's, I think, is where the problems begin.
I couldn't agree
Yeah.
more with you, Alejandro, and it doesn't have to be as direct as saying don't go and play with that person. It's remarks how parents could be watching something on TV and they start remarking or sharing stories in front of their children that will
Huh?
inadvertently, indirectly perhaps even, will influence their judgment. So I would say certainly with any kind of discrimination, be it based on gender, on race, anything is taught at home or it's taught at school or it's taught in religious institutions, because between religions, yes, we're trying to be inclusive and everything. A lot of divide is caused between the religious, religions, when it comes to marriages, when it comes to parents discussing different religions in a very negative way in front of their children. They get influenced from not just home but the religious, like churches, for example, or mosques, going there, listening to what the adults are saying. But just being in those different environments, they definitely learn that way. It's definitely got to be taught by the environment. Rick, what do you think?
I agree with everything that's been said, and I would say it's cultural as well. It could be
Yeah,
people of essentially the same race, and it could be the same religion, but they could have different cultural values.
that's right.
We see that a lot in the Middle East, for example. There's a whole. It's essentially an Arabian group of people who within each of those Arab countries have completely different viewpoints about how they approach life and approach the world.
Yeah,
For the most part, they're all Islamic,
yeah,
and yet they still have these very big cultural differences between them that they manage to work through. But it's cultural as well.
yeah,
I remember one thing. I remember that was some years ago. That I used to be part of the church. I mean, I used to go to church, and even within the church, within the Christian church, I have to say, and I don't have anything. I don't have anything against. I mean, church or church goers. I know that some of us. I know that Rick is. I mean, he has I would say, Christian values, I mean, in him. So, but even within the church, I can see that you could notice some level of discrimination. I mean, a place where you would say there shouldn't be any discrimination at all. I mean, because a church should be a place where is very accepting of anybody. But let me ask you a question, and I want all your opinions. How would you feel if you have a church and a homosexual comes in and wants to be part of the church? I mean, in some churches, they would welcome that person. In some of the churches, it would cause incredible chaos because, of course, I mean, being homosexual is not in line with what the church believes. So, what are we going to do? I mean, are we going to accept? Are we going to not accept and say, hey, listen, this is not a place for you, go somewhere else? So what should be the attitude?
That's a superb question.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead,
that's a very
Manjari.
interesting question. Sorry to jump in.
No, it's okay.
I think there are preconceived notions about what's right and what's wrong. For example, homosexuals being wrong and heterosexuals being right. These are our rules, but these are human created rules. But does it really make sense? Is it truly the case? Can we really step back and see it in the form of different forms of individuals expressing themselves in their own way, and they have no control over something like that? So that is the truth. So the solution to discrimination is actually deconstructing the truth. Because the truth of the matter is that we are all human beings. We are all creatures of God or universe or nature, whatever you believe in, which means we all are unique in our own individual ways. That can seem weird, but weird with respect to what? Weird with respect to some of the rules, which are created by no one but us. Can we really step back and look into the rules from a larger framework, right? So in this case, he's a human being who has his own individual way of expressing his individuality, and he cannot do anything about it. That's the truth. So embrace that individuality. Of course, we are different, but we are going to embrace you into our cultures because we share the same underlying human values of love and compassion and whatever, being coming from the same source. I mean, I'm getting a bit spiritual and esoteric, but just saying whatever comes out. So I think that's you have to move towards the truth, deconstruct the truth, versus, oh my God, this doesn't go according to the rules of the society. All right, what are the rules? Is that complete? Even though these rules are followed consistently across generations and has always been followed, that does not mean that they are thoroughly, completely valid.
Right. But
There is more to it. So I think we have to look for more ways to expand our understanding of the truth. When you expand, you'll mostly find that you'll be able to embrace so many differences as part of the same umbrella, because your concept of umbrella has broadened. So I think
you
that's
know what I will say as well? Sorry, Manjati, I've interrupted you. I
no
will
problem.
say that just listening to you guys having a conversation, it's very evident that we are not past discrimination, be it comes when it comes to church or the business or kindergarten. You know, it's very evident we're still. I've got a long journey to go in all different areas, be it cultural, be it gender divisive, be it whatever. Certainly, from my perspective, I've seen and I've experienced discrimination before based on my gender. And I mean, it's real and it's out there. And just have a look at a gender pay gap. It's still there. It should not be there in this day and age. It should be gone by now. Women who are of childbearing age, they're still being discriminated against when it comes to them getting a job, because they would rather have a bloke who is obviously not able to bear the children to go and get the more permanent position. That shouldn't be happening. Apple opened its new offices. Don't ask me where exactly, but you know what they had? They had fantastic facilities. They had billiard tables. They had chill out rooms. They had cinema like rooms and team bonding rooms. They had all of that amazing stuff happening there. really awesome. What they should have had is nursery in there. But they didn't have that because the whole world, the whole new beautiful office was targeted towards men. And that's very telling. So our culture still has got a long way to go when it comes to actually stopping the gender pay gap, stopping the discrimination when it comes to women of childbearing age, and starting actually physically doing something to show that they are not just supporting the blokes who will play billiard during the break times and have a chat at the coffee machine, but they will support women as well. Because if you can invest that amount of money in those facilities, certainly you can invest some money into having facilities providing support to women of childbearing age when they do have children. So I thought when I've read that and I looked into those facilities, I thought that was so telling of how much more we have to do to overcome certainly the gender division there. But I will actually go to Rick. Hey, Rick, are you still awake?
Hey,
So what are your thoughts? Have you ever experienced any kind of discrimination? Have you witnessed it happening? So I've given you my take on the gender discrimination because I have experienced it and I have seen it, and it's rife out there. You don't have to dig far to actually have the evidence of it. Just look at the pay gap, start there, and there will be more things that will crawl out from under the stone. But what's your take?
well, it's interesting you say that. I was a young boy in the middle of the race riots in the U.S. in the 1960s. Now, it didn't really hit my town, but it hit some cities that were very close to
Yeah.
where I lived. So we heard about the burning cities and the unrest and the rioting in the streets and all of that stuff. We would see it on the news every night. And here I was, just pretty young myself, but still affected by all that. And I think what it really comes down to more than anything is our comfort zone. We tend to be with those that are like us. And even when we don't mean to discriminate, it comes across as discrimination. And when we behave in that way long enough, we stay in that comfort zone long enough, it's not long before we actually start to overtly discriminate.
Mm.
So, have I experienced it personally? I have not experienced it personally, but I have seen it all around me. I shared with some of you a video clip of a commercial, a public service commercial, public service announcement
Yes.
that was very big in New York City when I was growing up. And it's a bunch of children of all races, of all colors, of all nationalities, playing on a playground, on monkey bars, on riding tricycles, and just playing ball, having a great time with each other.
Yeah.
And in the background was a song from the play South Pacific. You have to be taught to hate and fear. And that really resonated with me. Even being as young as I was back then, I realized, that's true. And there is no reason to have those discriminatory feelings based on a person's physical appearance.
Yeah.
Now, do we discriminate? We discriminate all the time, and discrimination is not always a bad thing. It's a bad thing when it's unjustified, as Manjari said early on, when it's based on a very limited understanding. I mean, if we're going to hire somebody for a job, we want the best person for a job, which means in some way a discrimination between candidates. But it's a discrimination based on abilities, based on fit, based on maybe chemistry. It's not based on those exterior things that should not disqualify a person for consideration. Does that make
That's
sense?
Well, but
Yeah,
yes,
definitely.
and the other thing is this: as I was listening, to Rick, it just came to mind. I think that we are pretty much, this group, we are in the leadership, in the personal growth and development kind of a industry, and I'm just going to bring perhaps a statement or a quote by Jim Rohn. And I know that all of you have heard that. It says, we are the average of the 5 people that we spend most of our time with. Or in my case, I guess I tend to live my life in a certain frequency, and I tend to attract to me and to my life journey people who are at that energy level, at that frequency. I don't normally attract people who are I don't know, living under a bridge, or who don't have any aspirations. I mean, for anything in life. Now, and I have to be very honest with all of you. I don't want to associate myself with those people, and I'm going to say it very loud. Now, would that qualify me as, am I discriminating? And I don't think so. So as Rick was saying, and I totally agree with what you said, Rick, we are discriminating pretty much every day and all the time because we want to make a distinction of the people that we want to have in our circle of influence. And not everybody qualifies to be in our circle of influence. And I don't think that for some people that could be discrimination. I guess for me, it is not discrimination. For me is I want to be with people who can elevate me and not diminish me and bring me down.
Well, let me add to that, if I may. And I agree with what you say, and that is not to diminish the value and the contribution of that person. That person is still of incredibly high value and worth, even if they're not aligned with your purpose might be, my purpose might be, what our goals might be. They still deserve to be heard. They deserve to be treated with respect, and they deserve our love and attention.
Well,
I think that we should list. I'm sorry, Anna.
You go ahead. You go ahead.
I think that we should respect everyone because every single human being has intrinsic value as a human being. And we should have the humility to hear everybody's opinion. However, we don't have to accept everybody's opinion.
I think this is a subject of where we draw the line. When is it acceptable to discriminate and exclude people out of our circle, and when it's not? And I suppose definitely for me, the undercurrent here is making informed decisions rather than based on the color or the culture as a general rule. So getting to know the person and then deciding whether you want to work together, whether you want to associate with that person, etc., etc. Now, it was really interesting what you said about people living under the bridge, because in essence that breaches that principle, because you don't get to know them, but you're already judging them and you wouldn't want to associate them. And it's the same in racism. Because of a certain skin color, you don't even get to know the person, but you already made a prejudice. You already have a prejudice about that person. Maybe they're super famous singer that's living under the bridge who would elevate you 10 stories, and they have been conned out of all of their money. But because they are under the bridge, you are discriminating them based on where they are, and you are not giving them a chance. You're not actually making an informed decision about that person and whether they are able to elevate you or not. So do we draw the line when we actually say we make informed decisions about that person as opposed to where they live, their culture, their religion, or their skin color, or their gender?
I think you guys brought out a very interesting thing, because we have different perceptions of discrimination, right? Because we have these divisions, and I think to a certain extent divisions are necessary, because people with similar values and frequencies need to come together so that they can work towards a unified vision. And that is necessary for the collective functioning. But I think discrimination in the sense that we want to discuss today is when we take the differences too far. Meaning we take the differences and we start interfering with the fundamental rights of existence of some individual. I mean, if I say I'm different from that person, but I'm not interfering with their life in any way. They live their own life. I live their own life. You have your own, stuff going on. I have my own stuff. I think that's okay. That's healthy, because we need to do that at some level as well, because I'm working towards my unified vision with frequency of my kind of people. So that is fine. But when I go and poke that person, you are not worthy of that. I am worthy of that because I am color one, you're color two, or I am caste one, you're caste two. Then you take it too far, and that's when it's a problem. I think there is a fine line. It's
Yeah.
not like, we are on human race and we are all together collectively doing everything together. I think there has to be some level of discipline in terms of categorically bringing similar people together in groups, so that we work towards unified vision. But we do not take that too far. Right? We do not take that too far. We do not interfere. We do not disrespect another people from another class. Right? I think that's where we have to draw the line, because division is necessary. Because we need to collectively come together based on certain skill sets. That's the way we function. But that does not mean that people in that category, oh, they're bad, they're good, or we don't know.
This is like a playground, reminded me what you were saying. It's like kids in the playground, they discriminate against one another. They get together in groups and they discriminate based on personality styles, and we call it bullying, but really they discriminate against certain qualities that the child has, or because he's from a certain family. So to a certain level, I think, yes, we're taught to discriminate from childhood when it comes to particular criteria like skin color or gender, whatever else it might be. But actually, to a certain degree, we have that within us already. That it's almost like we're born with it to form groups and to exclude other people that do not necessarily align with our frequency. So I think there is a bit of both. Just thinking about the playground here, nobody taught anybody to really bully in most cases. I don't know. What
I think
are your takes?
I want to add something on that, just for a minute or two. So when it comes to child, when he bullies, the reason he bullies is because he's going after a false sense of superiority, which is quick and instant. He doesn't have the a bigger picture and the bigger understanding of how he can be superior, which is basically working hard, serving people, right? That broadens as you grow up. But as a child, it's like, okay, I put him down, I beat him up, he's inferior, I'm superior, game over, I win. So that's the way child thinks. So I think as a child, and also it might also stem from his own level of insecurity and the fact that they live in a void, lack of self-worth, right? And since they are not able to find a coherent and solid way to get that self-worth or the love that they might be missing in the family, they look for quick fixes in their environment, which is, I lack love. I feel that I don't belong because they're parents or whatever. So I'm going to fill myself up by beating that child. So it stems from their insecurity, their self-worth, and also a very top level interpretation of superiority, right? I mean, if I want to be superior, I'll just beat you, you fall down, I'm superior, inferior, first level. Bigger level, I work hard, I build a vision, I help people, which broadens as we grow up.
That's really interesting. But I mean, none of us are child psychologists, and we're getting so deep into where the discrimination stems from. So I just want to kind of move up to a little bit more superficial level. Let's take the discrimination to businesses. Did you see any experiences? Did you have any experiences? Did you experience, where you perhaps witnessed discrimination or were discriminated against, and also within the business that you are in right now? Has there been any measures that were put in place when it comes to diversity and inclusion? Has there been any improvement in that area?
Well, I have not personally been discriminated upon, but I can tell you that I worked in some companies that in some cases, I mean, it was quite visible the fact that some people were not given opportunities as frequently as other employees were, and so that is, discrimination can start very subtle, but then if not dealt with, it can be a place that you can say it can get out of control. Now, here in the U.S., there is within the government there is a place that is the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission that deals with discrimination. And if you feel that you are discriminated upon, I mean, you can present a complaint and so forth, and people look. I mean, so it's quite a serious offense, discriminating based on race or sexual orientation or whatever. I mean, whatever. I mean, whether you, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you are male or female. But what about in other parts of the world? I mean, when it comes to preventing discrimination in businesses, I mean, do you have perhaps in the UK or even in Abu Dhabi or in India? I mean, organizations that prevent discrimination in businesses?
Well, there is such a
I
place
think
called Citizens Advice Bureau that people go often if they were dismissed from the job role based on were treated unfairly based on perhaps gender or the skin color, whatever. So most of the people in the UK would probably go there as a first call. Here in Jersey, I don't know. We've only just moved to Jersey at the end of the last year, so I'm sure they will have something different here. Because they do have the diversity and inclusion movement, and they do have movement towards addressing mental health and removing stigma. So I'm sure they will have something for that as well. How about UAE, Rick? Because I lived in Dubai for a couple of years, and I have to say from my own experience, and I haven't lived in Abu Dhabi. I actually lived in Dubai. That they definitely need a lot of work to do in my experience from what I've seen when it comes to discrimination. What is your take? What are your views? Do you have anywhere to go if you feel
Yeah, well, I
discriminated
would
against?
say compared to what we would call Western standards, yes. Compared to Middle East standards, maybe not. Maybe they're right where they want to be and it's working well for them. Here's what I have seen. I have seen where there is great opportunity for diversity of participation in business. There is not great diversity in opportunities to achieve more
Ah,
in business. So there are large national movements. I can only speak for the UAE. I'm sure it's in other countries as well.
yeah.
South Africa comes to mind, where several years ago, right after apartheid, there was a strong sense that the native people should get the better jobs. It's their country. How do you
Yeah.
argue with
Yeah.
that? In many cases, the native people are not the most qualified people, at least maybe not yet.
That's right.
So in South Africa, that was not the case, and I'm going to be speaking about things that I don't know well enough, and I probably shouldn't speak about it. But my understanding is that it was a bit chaotic for a while until the people that they put in those positions really did come up to speed and learn the job. They didn't know it at first; they had to learn it as they went, and that causes a bit of chaos.
Yeah.
And here I would say what they're doing is in the UAE, the goal is, particularly in Abu Dhabi, the goal is to staff the great jobs of the Emiratis, but
Yeah.
they are preparing those Emiratis for those positions. And until then, they've got expatriates here to help with that. The long-term goal is to get rid of us expatriates, get them
Yes.
back out so that the Emiratis can have those jobs and creating opportunities for their own people.
Yeah.
That's hard to say no to. I mean, is it discrimination? Yes. Is it done with a sense of dignity? I think so. They're valuing the expatriates for what they can offer, and yet they have a clear vision that they want their people to have the opportunities to get these jobs. If
Yeah,
that
and
makes sense.
yeah, absolutely, and it is a form of discrimination from the Western standards point of view, as you've said. And I've observed very similar situation. I mean, you can't even get residency. Well, when I lived there, you can't get residency if you are an expat. There is no way because the residents are only local people. Basically, if you want to dedicate your working life to working in here in UAE, that's great. But when you get to that age when you need a pension, we would like you to go home. you know, which is not
Right.
particularly fair. And what I will say, I'll actually share an experience with you. It's, and it happens every day to white expats. There is a certain caste system, certainly in Dubai, when you start living there. Not if you come there on holiday, you will never notice it. But if you go to the government buildings, I had my first very, very racist experience and felt hugely uncomfortable. So, as Rick said, the caste system goes locals first, then the whites, and then everybody else. And they have got their place as well. Indians, Filipinos, I don't remember which ones come first. I think the Indians is first, then Filipinos, or the other way around. But there is a caste system within the colored races that are expats in UAE as well. And I went to this government building. What did I have to do to get a local driving license? And there were queues of people of all kind of races, and you know they are very, very bureaucratic, aren't they? Everything has got to have a stamp. Everything has got to have a signature. You know, like in the olden days. We are way past that now. We don't have that system anymore. They want everything stamped, and it's just a nightmare to work out which window to go to. So I was in this government building. Where the hell do I queue up? I had no clue. So I've asked the official. He didn't put me in the queue. He actually took me to a separate window. There was a massive queue of all people of color, but I was taken to a separate window, which was specially for locals and for white residents. And I was so embarrassed. I would have rather queued for 2 hours in that queue, but I was so embarrassed to be looked at because, of course, everybody knows. Some friends were there together. Some people knew one another, and you can just see them whispering. It was one of the the most awakening experiences that I had, and that's a real story. And I just could not wait to leg it from that building as quickly as I can. I've not felt such big racial division ever before. Or well, since then I did have incidents, but I was accustomed by then. You know, it wasn't such a big shock, but that was a big shock, and that's kind of the experience that I had of living in UAE. It was very clear division there. But again, as you say, for their standards, maybe they are where they want to be, and maybe there are plans to kind of introduce less segregation there. Who knows? But Manjoti, what about you? Did you have any experiences? What is it like in India when it comes to discrimination and diversity and inclusion and all of that?
I mean, in the workplace, I won't say I've experienced any discrimination in a noticeable sense. People deviate from the neutral point, little bit here and there, and everybody knows it, and it's okay because it's not much.
Yeah.
But I have seen discrimination or privileges based on, let's say, the same caste or belonging to the same background versus the skill sets at some level, to some extent. I won't say much, because if, let's say, somebody overshadows everything with a very superior level of skill set, then of course that person is going to come out superior in the workplace as well. So I have not witnessed like very noticeable forms of discrimination, a little bit here and there, within the acceptable boundaries. I mean, it's stuff where, I know that there's a little bit of discrimination, but it's okay because it's at a very small level. And if I come out with flying colors in terms of my skill sets, then I'm going to come out front. So I think I have witnessed that, but I am aware of discrimination based on, similar background or same religion or same caste. At a very superior level. For example, let's say I'm a boss or a manager, and I have somebody in my team who's at skill level 40 from my own background, from my city or something like that, my country. And there's another person who's at skill level 80 who's doing so well. But I choose to go with this person with skill level 40 because we belong to the same caste or something like that. So that's a very high level of discrimination. And I'm aware of those kinds of discrimination going on, not just in my countries, I think across, and because I keep hearing these stories. I think that's a problem. That's a problem. I mean, if it's like 40 and 50, yeah.
And it's natural. People who run companies do that all the time. When an executive is looking for new executives to maybe mentor or bring on board, one of the first things they ask is, well, what university did you go to? And they want to pick somebody from either their university or a university that's very similar to the one they went to. Maybe what we would call an Ivy League school. They're looking for people who they can make some judgments based on what their past experiences are. So based on the fact that you went to that kind of school, you're probably this kind of person, and that's the kind of person we're looking for.
Yeah,
Now,
because
let me put to you um, this kind of scenario. Because I mean, if you work for an organization, whether it's maybe Apple or Siemens or Amazon or whatever, those are corporations, and they have to definitely abide by the laws of discriminations, and they have to be very careful about what they do. But let me throw this to you. This is a family-owned business, and a family-operated business, and the whole family is of a particular religious denomination, and they are hiring and an applicant from a different, let's say that the family is of a Christian denomination, and there is a Muslim who comes and is qualified for the position. However, the family says, uh, interviews the person, but it doesn't give, I mean, the person is definitely qualified, but it doesn't get the job because the family doesn't want to have that person based on, we don't want to have any Muslims working for us. Now, remember, this is a family owned business, a family operated business. Then um, should they have a say in who is going to work for them, or do they have to be subject, I mean, to, well, I mean, we have to hire even a person even if we don't agree or if we do not want it?
do you know what? I think in situations like this, it's very easy to pull the race card because that person, although it was a Muslim person from a different religion, but they might have dismissed him because they didn't like how he or she communicates, and just because, not because that person is Muslim. And I think that again, that's where the lines get blurred. I think there might
I
have
think
been
yes.
a host of different reasons, and I'll give you an example. And oh my God, probably somebody watching this will not agree with me. I'll probably get attacked by Meghan Markle fans, but I will say it nevertheless. When this whole controversy of the in the UK of her and Prince Harry, leaving the royal family, and the bullying and everything else. It was actually watched actually a program, and I do follow that particular news topic just because I find it fascinating and a little bit crazy. It was based on the actions that the press and public in the UK turned against the couple. It was based solely on hypocritical actions, and it has very clear starting point, and everybody was very welcoming to the couple in the very beginning, and we thought, yes, royal family is going to change a bit. They have got slightly different edition, and everybody was super excited about it, but black communities, of course, in particular. I watched the wedding. I think it was brilliant, but there were certain events, certain things that they done that were hypocritical, and as a result of that, they got very negative coverage, and it just went from bad to worse. However, um, the couple started pulling the race card. Hey, it's race because she's mixed race. However, it's actually nothing to do with the race, in my opinion. Because I remember the events that happened, and again, many people will not agree with me saying that, and I think this particular situation applies to what you're talking about, because it's so easy to pull out the religion discrimination card, but there might have been totally different reasons behind them not accepting that particular person of that religion into a job. So you just never know. It really depends on the situation and conversation. That's my opinion. What do you
But
guys
but
think?
but the other thing is, would a family operated business, would they have to follow the same rules when it comes to discrimination as larger organizations that they have to do? I mean, what are your views on those?
Well, it depends how big the
Um,
family is,
I
right?
think, I think, so there are two things here. One thing is, right, there is a caste one, caste two, caste three, caste four, or race one, race two, race three, race four. So if the person is from race one, then he has quality one. If he's from race two, he has quality two. Like, it's predefined, fixed, non-negotiable. So he's going to bring that to the table, even if the world comes to an end, there's nothing you can do about it. On top of that, there are some more skill sets which we are going to consider for the business. So we assume that if this person is coming from this category, caste one or race one or whatever, then he's bringing those core skill sets or whatever qualities no matter what. But if we strip away from that notion, which is basically based on probably your own personal experience, I met a person from race one and he or she was like that. And that's why all the race one people are like that. Or I read in the newspaper, or I read a book, right? Instead of looking at it like that, if you consider him as, human being, what are his skill sets? Okay, skill sets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, great. So this will be useful. What are his weaknesses? Okay, will not be useful. And how can he grow in his skill sets so that he might be able to contribute in this thing in future here? So that is a more neutral and more thorough and a broader standpoint. But I'm not entirely sure if that should be the case because I don't know. There are so many blurry lines and so many, pros and cons and things like that. So maybe there might be, I don't know if maybe if we go with the bias of this is like that is like that is like that. This is how it is, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, whatever they bring into the table, because that gives us a security. Oh my God, my kind of people. Okay, he has this skill set for sure. Okay, let's see what's on top of that, right? So it stems from a little bit of fear.
Yeah. How would you detect if you're working in a corporation? What are some of the signs that would detect that there is discrimination going on? I'm asking you this because I read an article, and there are a few items that says, these are some things that happened that are elements that detect discrimination. But before I give you some of these, what do you think some of the visible aspects that you can say, well, I think that this is a place where there is discrimination?
Well, I think it's very simple.
Okay. I'll quickly share something. Can I? If you
Rick, do you see what I had to put up with during my last live when it was just me and it was Alejandro and Monjote? You can see that now,
I have
can't
no
you?
comment.
If you do have, feel free to interrupt, no problem.
No, it's all right. You go ahead, Monjote.
You can see Anna going,
I was doing this.
I'm here.
Yeah, no problem. So maybe when Alejandro takes a sip of coffee, that's your chance.
Yes, exactly.
To jump in.
I will start raising my hand. I will use the facility in Zoom where it goes, I want to speak.
Right. So, I'll try to be very quick, right? So there are two things I think that comes to my mind. One thing is, of course, if it's an organization and if there is discrimination in terms of, skill sets, right? We are taking people based on, same background or same university versus the skill sets that is relevant for the organization. Of course, your results are going to reflect that. You don't have the right skill sets to produce the results for your organization. So, of course, the results will suffer, right? And that is number one indication. How we measure the results that we have to see. Second thing is, of course, I think if we can capture personal satisfaction of people in the organization, I don't know if it could be an anonymous survey. People, and we give them the freedom to express everything that they are going through on a personal level, because it could be discrimination at any level within the organization. It could even be, as sexual or, caste or abuse, God knows what. So if we give them a freedom to express what they're going through, in a way that's safe also, I think that will give us a clear indication of what's going on in that workplace. Oh my God, that's toxic. That workplace is toxic. Right? Or that's wonderful. Everybody is in harmony. Everybody respects each other. And that's one matrix. Another one is, I think, the results of the organization. If the results are suffering, then what the hell is going on? How are they hiring? Okay, they're hiring based on caste 1, 2, and 3 versus skill sets 1, 2, and 3. Of course, naturally the results reflect that. So I think these are a couple of things that.
Okay, Manjot, you can breathe now. I've taken a moment to just interrupt. Yeah, exactly. I would say, for me, certainly the biggest thing that I'm quite passionate about is a gender pay gap and discrimination based on sex. So I will say my bit. If I hear of organization where they only have male employees, well, that says it all, doesn't it? You know, that's a sign to look out for. Or if they're all Christian, or if they're all Muslim, or if they all play in the same soccer team. You know, I think that's pretty standard and quite, obvious. What about you, Rick? I will invite you to this conversation, my lovely sea partner. What are your views?
You want to drag me into this hornet's nest? Okay. Well, let me maybe contribute a little something to what Alejandro said a few moments ago. And it was very interesting the way you posed the question. This family-run business that is going to or has an opportunity to select someone who's not really part of that same mindset.
Mm.
And as we were all talking about that, I'm thinking a couple of things. One is, why should they? I mean, it's my money, it's my company. Why should I have to work with somebody I don't want to? Why should I pay somebody to join my company that I really don't want them there? Now, that's discrimination. Absolutely it is. So as I'm thinking about that, there are such a thing as technical qualifications, and there's also other qualifications that are maybe less tangible. The technical qualifications you can see, they have the skill, they don't have the skill. The intangible ones obviously are less hard to see. Do they share my values? If I bring this person into my company, is that going to raise or lower the harmony level of the company? And although the person might be a better technical candidate, is it a better cultural candidate? And although they bring incredible skill, does it undermine what the company stands for? And I don't know the answer to any of those questions, but it's something that probably ought to be considered, if that makes sense.
I think yes, and I think that we've talked about discrimination based on race, based on gender, based on disability. I mean that's another very important thing.
That's so true.
Yes, based on disability, but the one is is what's called cultural discrimination. And when it comes to cultural discrimination, I read it says religious hate, tribalism, and racism are the most common forms of cultural discrimination. So, are you part of the same tribe in a sense as me? If you are, then you're welcome. If you're not, then God help you and just go your own way, in a sense. And that is part. But what Anna was saying.
Well, before you go on with that, let me interrupt.
Sure.
Oh,
yes.
Because yes, Rick.
I want to challenge. I want to challenge the hate word a little bit.
Okay.
So it might not be hate at all. It might be my comfort zone. I don't hate you. I'm not comfortable with you. That's not the same to me as hate, if that makes sense.
That's a great distinction. Yeah. But one of the things that this list says about detecting discrimination is obviously lack of diversity. And we already in a different session, we talked about diversity and inclusion. And there's been some research proven that companies that are big and they are very for an environment of diversity and inclusion, those are the companies that do not have as many problems with this discrimination as companies that do not have diversity among their environment. So lack of diversity is a factor for discrimination. Another area that I thought that it was quite interesting, it was when you come to the interview process, is when you are asked very odd interview questions.
Oh, that's interesting. What
Right.
kind of questions?
I
What's your
think I
religion?
get you.
Are you
That's
straight?
right.
Are you gay?
Eh?
Those kind of questions you mean? Are you straight? Are you gay? What
The-
religion, you know,
Yeah.
that
yes, that's exactly, yes, odd questions. Now, the other thing is,
wow.
perhaps when you are in a team meeting or in meetings, is inappropriate jokes. When you have inappropriate
I
jokes,
have got just an example, Alejandro. I worked in a company before. When I just came to the UK, I was only 19 and I ended up landing a job in the casino as a manager assistant. And my manager used to, in front of all the customers, sing a song, a rhyme of a song. And I don't even know where that song came from, but I used to be so ashamed when he did it in front of customers. You know what he would sing? My name is Anna. I am a showgirl in front of everyone passing by. You know,
Oh my
I
God.
was very young and naive at the time, but if I had my brains right now, the first thing I would have done, I would have gone to Citizens Advice Bureau. You know, but at the time, I just put up with that kind of behavior. And this is what you are saying, inappropriate jokes and comments.
that's right.
Definitely.
So he's
Not
obviously a
only
Barry Manilow fan.
I don't, to this day, I didn't know where that song comes from. My name is Anna. I'm
Yeah,
a showgirl.
Copacabana, Barry Manilow.
Oh my God. There you go. That's my very young years experience.
Now,
Not a good
the
one.
other the other thing was, when you see a company that has very high turnover rates, when they have like a kind of a revolving door, people go in, I mean, they spend some time and then they get out. I mean, when they have that kind of a turnover, is because something may not be working. Now, another is promotion denials. When people are not promoted, even if they have the skills, even if they have the desire, if they have the determination and so forth, but they are not promoted,
Yeah.
is because there may be internal problems. Now, this is one, as a leadership coach, and we are all into leadership. Now, what do you say about demeaning leadership? When leadership and when leaders, instead of enhancing others and bringing others up, they push them down and they demean people as opposed to elevating them.
Well, that's
What do you say about that?
that's
I
authoritarian
think
leadership here, I think, Alejandro. And I
right,
think that's
right.
being changed very slowly through coaching and leadership through coaching and
Yeah.
360 reviews coming into the company where confidentially employees share what is not working when it comes to maybe high turnover rates, satisfaction at work, employee engagement. In those companies, most of the time, employees are actively disengaged, which means it's costing huge sums of money for the company to train up new employees because the ones that they have eventually leave, and also the rate of the work jobs slow down. So it's authoritarian leadership, and that's where us as corporate and executive coaches come in. We actually help to change the culture from the top, because you have to start at the top. You can go and train teams who are dysfunctional, you can coach them, and that's great. However, the change has to start at the top and then trickle down.
That, that
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
I wanna probably deconstruct a little bit of the psychology behind demeaning leadership or different forms of leadership. So both these kind of leaders, the demeaning leaders and also the other kind of leader that lifts
The
everybody up,
enhancer, the
the
enhancing leader.
enhancer, right? The
Yeah.
enhancing leader and the demeaning leader. Both these guys are trying to make things better, but their interpretation of what will lead to better is different. Even this guy is demeaning many people. He wants good for himself or his community in some sense, but
Rick.
he has a distorted perception of what leads to betterment, which is demeaning certain people. So I think it's more about
Hey,
shifting to
Monjotti. Hey,
Breathe,
Monjotti,
breathe,
hold on.
breathe, breathe, everyone. Can I just say something, Monjotti? Just there, you said that those both guys want what's the best. What if it's
Yeah.
girls?
what is it?
See?
What?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Girls. You said girls?
Yeah, because what you said both of these guys, the uplifting one and the one that's demeaning, they all want what's best. Why guys?
But I use guys in the context of, both the genders. Guys, girls are guys as well. Hey guys, I might say to a bunch of girls, hey guys, come on over, and I
Well,
say that to the boys as well. Yeah.
I mean, just getting back to what Anna just said. Listen, what happens, Anna, when you read a book, and in the book it says it talks about men, uh, but that men involves all genders. I mean, rather than, because if not, you would have to say all the time, well, either men or women, or either him or her. And so you just use the pronoun him or say men, but you are involving everyone. I mean, it's like when you're talking about humanity, you are bringing men and women, because humanity cannot be only men or only women. It has to be both. So
Look at
I
the
thought
high
that,
eye, Rick. Look at the high eye rescuing another high eye that just got themselves in trouble and landed in the hot water. Look at the teamwork there.
Yeah.
I love it. That's really good.
Yeah. There can be so many different levels of interpretation. I can imagine guy to be a boy and a girl both, but Alejandro took it to another level. Like men can be a boy and a girl. Actually, it can be, because man can be used in the context of, I guess, the I don't know, the superior figure or whoever is on the top, and I don't know if that can actually be girl and boy both. For me, guys can be boy and girl, but this is difference of interpretation. And for Anna, it's another different interpretation. Guys are boys.
All
Because
right,
I don't know
Jose,
this.
there is an English saying. There is an English saying. You are digging a hole. You're digging it now, and the more you talk about it, the deeper the hole gets.
Yeah, it's just fun. We can
But
go on
guys,
in this trajectory for next couple of hours, right?
exactly. So do you know what? I'm just looking at the time, lovely people, and we touched on so many different areas for discrimination, and we talked even about child psychology and about when you can call women men and guys, etc., etc. I mean, we've gone into so many different areas because it is a controversial subject, and sometimes, yes, we do discriminate without knowing it. Like Rick said, every day we probably discriminate. What I will say, the most passionate discrimination for me that I could talk and talk and talk is definitely definitely to do with gender. And what I highly recommend, is if not for you, maybe for somebody who's watching, to read a book called Work Like a Woman, and I've got it on my audio. So it's called Work Like a Woman, and it's by Mary Portas. So you can get it as an audiobook, you can buy it in print, and it's a fantastic book about female leadership and how it could be so beneficial for the organizations in terms of creating the culture. So just a final question. Do you have anything to add before we close off?
yes, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just going to say a couple of things. One thing is, I think that we talked about discrimination. We shared different things about discrimination, our ideas, our perspectives. I mean, different types of discriminations and how we can detect discrimination in the workplace. Now, do you think that it would ever be possible to get rid of discrimination altogether, or is this something that it will stay within humanity for the rest of time?
Yes, I want to add onto that. Right? I don't know if we can eliminate discrimination completely, eradicate from the face of earth, but there are certain ways we can improve it. I mean, this is my thought, of course. So let's talk about why we discriminate. Let's say a person who discriminates, for him, discrimination is okay. I mean, if I put this person down, it's okay. If I put this girl, if I sing a song, it's okay. So in his brain, it's okay to discriminate. Why is that okay? He's had role models who made it okay in his brain, because unconsciously we look for evidence in our environment. So we need the opposite role models. We need examples, especially people in superior positions. These could be leaders, presidents, actors, actresses, musicians. these people who people look up to, they become evangelists or examples of these people who clearly says, if you operate in this way, which is not discriminating, this is the benefit and that is the right way. And if you do so and so, that is bad, that is horrific. So that the moment the person is about to discriminate, this is like, oh, horror story, because actress Marilyn Monroe said that. No, right? So that this thing has to be there in the head, because one thing is we have this conditioning from our childhood, society, parents, and things like that. Other thing is, whenever we are about to do something, an evil act or whatever, we are looking for role models. What would Alejandro do? Right? Alejandro would go ahead with this crime. Let me go ahead. It's okay. Because we look for examples. Those acts as evidence that justifies our way of being. So we need the opposite examples, the right specific examples. If you treat a girl like this, horrific. If you treat that color like that, horror story. If you embrace humanity, diversity, amazing, beautiful. This is the result, and it's so beautiful. So I think we need to paint more of those pictures.
Thank you.
I think that will improve.
Thank you.
Step by step.
And I just will go to last but not least, I will go to Rick. Rick, would you like to add anything before we close off when it comes to the subject of discrimination? Did we miss anything?
No. There's nothing I could possibly add to what we've already talked about.
Now, you know one thing, Anna? What would be a great topic for a next discussion? It would be, because it was brought up in here, and I'm sure that it would be great. Yeah. When we talk about leadership, we talk about male and female leadership. So what could be the differences between female leadership versus male leadership? What are things that are perhaps commonalities, but what are things that are definitely different between one or the other? Because a leadership that a woman brings into the workplace, I'm sure that it is very different from the leadership that a man can bring to the workplace.
And that's a different subject we can perhaps explore another time, and that's a great idea for one of our live shows, certainly. But in the meantime, one thing that I will say is that we have got in our team, we meet for these discussions lightheartedly, just to really share our points of view, and they're all different, and it's always interesting to find out how they differ. And a lot of the times we walk away from these with slight change in our perception after hearing other people's opinions. So it's always great, these sessions. Tomorrow we've got our Meet the Team session, and also if discrimination was a subject that was close to heart, and perhaps there is discrimination in your company, we have got several diversity and inclusion specialists. So if you wanted to have a chat with us about improving your culture and actually implementing something to make it function even better than what it does now, please get in touch. Email us at info@havetheedge.org. And otherwise, we will see you tomorrow for our very informal discussion in our Meet the Team Live, 1 p.m. on our Facebook page, at 1 p.m. on our Facebook Have the Edge page. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.